what really resonates well with people who buy books is well-written books that have high stakes.
Wow.
What? Madness. Crazy talk now. We've had you on here too long, Joe. You lost the plot completely. You went crazy on us.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you for listening in. The show brought to you by Vellum, the best formatting solution in the whole wide galaxy. What do you say,
Universe,
Doug?
yes.
Universe. The universe.
Multiverse. In the multiverse.
Yes.
That's right. Thank you, Joe. Yes.
Nice.
Guest is popping in early.
Yeah, I know. He's already contributing.
He's contributing, yeah. Oh, wow.
All right. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters. Thanks a lot if you get some value from the show. And today is going to be a high value show, no question about it. Run on over to Patreon. It's not a scary place. The Two Authors Podcast is where we are. And for a couple of bucks a month, so you can subscribe and it helps support the show. We really appreciate it. We're going to dive right in. We have Joe Solari of the Author Nation Conference fame. But Joe's also a fellow who's been involved in the indie community for a very, very long time and has his finger on the pulse of most aspects of the business. Today, we're excited to chat with him about the deep dive. When I say deep dive, I'm not kidding you. He did a deep dive he's undertaken recently into the mythical witchcraft that are the algorithms behind Amazon's book buy pages and everything associated with them.
This is going to be the kind of show you better pull the car over, get your cup of coffee, and listen to. Because you guys want to take notes on this one because it's going to be very, very important. So.
Yeah, the main reason we had Joe on to talk about this is because A, we wanted to know, and B, you're all going to listen to it 3 times to make sure you catch everything you're going to talk about. All right, Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you very much. And just to kick things off, give the listeners a real quick overview if they don't know who you are. What's your resume?
Sure. And thanks for having me on again, guys. Love your show. I thought the stuff you guys did with Jamie and Sarah at the end of the year was just killer.
Oh, thanks. Yes. Well, Jamie and Sarah are awfully fun to deal with anyway. So
they make us look good.
That's not a hard task either. So.
No. And that's Jamie Luann to people that know her. I learned that this morning. Her name's Jamie Luann. He doesn't get more southern than that.
Yeah, so I'm the managing director of Author Nation. So it's a community built around a live event that has a sister event, which is Reader Nation, which is our reader-facing event that's connected where people come to meet authors like you and buy books from you and get them signed. I've been around here for 10 years. I started out, like a lot of us, as the spouse of an author and got pulled in to help with the technical stuff and back in the days of CreateSpace and lots of swearing at technology.
Formatting a damn book. We just talked about that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like think about that. Compare Vellum to like what you had to deal with
all the time. Trying to do it in Word. I had to do it in Word back in 2011. Oh my gosh. It was the first, I would publish the book and then I'd go back and change all the spaces that it kept leaving. And it took me forever. Those are horrible days.
And Suze's books had pictures in them.
Oh God.
There was a point where like we had to do this back end thing where you like turned it into a PDF and did it through the education window and to get into a CreateSpace. Like that's how long I've been around. But so the wind up is I've been helping authors for coming on over 10 years now, initially just on small business practice stuff because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've run 7 different businesses. Now I've kind of gone, and I think, I know what we're going to talk about today. This is kind of where I end up going is like in the beginning, I could help you with like, hey, this is what any small business should do. Like these are just good practices. And then I just keep investigating and now it's like I need to understand really deeply how the industry is working and developing so that I can continue to be of service to the industry. So my best analogy is I'm like one of those like crotchety old guys at a racetrack that handicaps horses. Like I know a lot about how the races are run and the track and the horses and the jockeys. And so this is kind of my idea of how I can handicap and help maybe you as a trainer of your horse get it to perform better on this track.
So let's just touch on Author Nation for a moment. 2025 was a big hit and went really well. I know Doug was there, loved it. Everyone spoke so well of it. What can we expect in 2026?
Well, the biggest complaint we've had was there's no Nicholas Harvey. So
that was told to you by one person, and that was me.
I was going to say, Nick could be a nice, featured speaker. You could throw him up on the big room there. He would be great.
You better clear out this nasty weather to get me out of the islands, man.
Yeah, I hear you. So I think, the big announcement, of course, is we're going to have Andy Weir, who's going to be speaking and signing. That's going to be great. We've got some other people we'll be announcing. I think that, we finally kind of gotten through the transition and people understand what we're trying to do. And our focus is fundamentally different in that we're trying to collectively figure out what your best life through writing is. And I know that sounds kind of woo-woo-y, but it's really like when we're all trying to become 7-figure authors, there's only a finite amount of those spots. And it's a statistical anomaly, right? So it actually creates competition that I don't think the industry is really interested in. Whereas when we start to look at how are you trying to build what's enough for you and what's sustainable for you, it's a different objective and a lot more achievable. And we're not competing, right? So I think that you're seeing some of the things that we're doing that's very different. It's not just here's how to sell more books. It's how do you really define what this career looks like for you? Because you say you want to do it for the next 20 years. Do you?
Right. Yeah, you sure?
Yeah, you sure?
Yeah.
I mean, it beats making fries at McDonald's sometimes. So,
I think for a lot of us, a big part of this is the community and getting together once a year and reminding ourselves, oh yeah, I remember what it was when I used to live in a cubicle and fill out TPS reports. And while it is brutal to be an author, and this is a hard business, and there's a lot of things that suck about it, I will do this all day long rather than go back and fill out another TPS report.
No, that's a great subject to cover there. I think it's really important, and it's becoming more and more important. And as a sidebar, but back when I was in the motorsports business, I worked with a lot of young drivers, and I was keen on telling them because everyone's goal is, hey, I want to be an F1 driver, I want to be a Formula One driver, I want to be a Grand Prix driver, or I want to be an IndyCar driver. That's great. Do you see how many cars are out there? See how many drivers
22.
are in them? Yeah, 22 F1 cars. So that's only 22 people out of literally millions of people who want to be doing that. So if your goal is, I want to be a professional race car driver, now you're setting yourself up for a success. If that ends up being a Grand Prix driver, fantastic. And a young man, shout out to John Edwards, who I work with, who's a great guy. He went on to a 15-year professional paid. Professional means you're actually getting paid to be in the car rather than paying them to be in the car. And he went on to a superb career at that level. And some of the decisions he made, I know he made based on, this is the smart move because I'm going to make a living. I'm going to be paid by a factory to be in there. And it's kind of the same model with authors. Yeah. Do we want to be 7-figure authors? Yeah. But you know what? 4 years ago, I wanted to be a 6-figure author. Now, after a couple of years of being a 6-figure author, I'm making a living. I'm supporting my family. And that's kind of the goal. So setting those realistic expectations, I think, is a fabulous discussion.
Yeah. And it's stuff that I've been, we're trying to embed in the show, because the fact that you're a 6-figure author, you're a statistical anomaly. You are in the top 1% of the industry. The good thing and the bad thing about coming to a show like Author Nation is you come there and now you're in the survivorship bias bubble. There's guys like Doug and you and Willow Winters and Mary Stone and, all these big names. And you're thinking oh, I suck. I only made $50,000 a year, or I only made $10,000 a year. It's because you're hanging out with that crowd. What we're not looking at is even if you made $1,000 this year, you're in the top 20% of the industry. And a lot of this now is about how do we just get you to understand what your enough is and your sustainability, so you don't do damage to your career trying to become a 7-figure author. Because I've got data, and we won't talk about it on this podcast, but if you're making 6 figures, you're 10 times more likely to go to making 5 figures than you are to go to making 7 figures.
That's very true.
That is true.
That's very true.
That is terrifyingly true.
Now I'm sad.
Yeah. Now I'm terrified. All right, we're going to wrap this up because I got to go write some stuff. All right, let's move this on to the meat of the episode because this is what we really got to get to. So you've dived down a rabbit hole of all rabbit holes into a warren. First of all, what drove you down this rabbit hole? Let's do that. So you've written this very long and very detailed and very good article about Amazon's algorithms. So how did you end up down that hole?
So I think we all have had experience this past, year or so with folks in forums and Facebook groups questioning what's going on with ranking. And like it's slowing and all. And I wanted to know what was going on. And I didn't want to just go on like what the prevailing wisdom is in this cargo call we call publishing, right? Like, is like, what is going on? And I started to dig into this, and it's one of these things where it's like pulling on a thread on your sweater. All of a sudden, everything starts unraveling, and what I found was a lot of the stuff that we believe, and I have stood confidently on stage or on podcasts, said myself, is wrong, is just absolutely wrong. And what was probably the biggest aha moment is like we had it wrong from the beginning.
I was going to say, was this something we've had wrong or just changed? Yeah.
Yeah. And we're making decisions based on how we are observing and seeing things, but they're not connected to how the system actually works. And I think that, again, how much weight authors place on rank is probably the most significantly wrong thing. Rank is an indicator of a lot of other things that are going on. I do not see that it has any importance beyond an author's feeling of status and hierarchy. And it is an indicator.
And an indicator, right? So you can use it as an indicator gauge. What we've trained ourselves to look for on that indicator gauge, which is these peaks, is, and we'll get into you talking about that more. That's the bit that's kind of, we're looking at the gauge the wrong way.
Yeah. The idea of some of the things that I've said and others have said and people are still actively doing is launch strategies. When I look at this information, it's like you're hurting yourself. And what you thought was working that may have made somebody a success wasn't that they were spiking their rank, but what was developing in what builds successful recommendation and understanding that there's rank, there's recommendation, and there's keyword search. And they're influencing each other, but they're all different. And you have to understand how they all work. And, oh, by the way, a lot of this stuff is changing. And I think part of it was two things. One was like this, like, oh, rank is slowing. They've broken. They're doing evil things to us was part of it. And then making it this assumption that it's this A10 algorithm, which there's no such thing. It's not a thing. It's something that we've made up to try and explain why the sun rises and goes down every day.
So it's all fabricated, or is it just, kind of like we've misconstrued it?
It's a bit of both, right? Like we're trying to explain and trying to understand as best we can without all the information, a very, very complex system. One, there's no such thing as this A10 algorithm. There is, and we were talking a little bit this before we hopped on, is like, there is no one algorithm. There's no one all-seeing. The book algorithm in the United States is different than other countries. And within the United States, there is one for Kindle, there's for digital products, there's one for audiobooks, there's one for print books. These things relate to each other, but they're doing different things. And then within that, I think the part that was a big piece of this understanding for me is that we're really sensitive to this thing that was changing very fast, right? We could observe by our repeated hitting and refreshing of a screen, rank changing hour by hour.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never once repeatedly refreshed my screen looking for ranking.
Obsessively.
Not once in the 15 years I've been publishing have I ever done that. Certainly not today either. So
Doug lies live again on the show.
Yeah. Whereas the way that the algorithm is calculated requires what I call fast and slow computing. So there's things that Amazon does fast because they need to have a really good customer experience, like how fast you start typing words into a keyword search. You notice right off the bat, it's completing words for you, right? Well, that's an algorithm, and it's an algorithm that's going to influence what people see, because if you start adopting what they're suggesting to you, which is based on data that they've collected over time, that when somebody types in these 3 letters, you should complete it with this word. Well, figuring out what that word is was the slow compute. They do that maybe once a month or once a week. And then that gets put into something that acts fast, right? So when you think about how they're determining, let's just talk about rank because that's the thing authors think about. There's a lot of different components to this that determines. We're very sensitive to sales velocity, but when you're trying to rank, you're trying to put 42 million titles into order. You only have sales data on a few of them. And then you have to start baking in other stuff. Like, has anyone clicked on that sales page? Has anybody left a review for this book in 3 months? Was the review good or bad? One of the things I talk about in the article that people don't understand is since 2016, audio and digital books, they have been tracking consumption. So did people finish your book? I'll double click on that for a second. When, like, this is where it gets scary for me, is like when we would do these things to sell a lot of books fast to spike rank, and those books end up in to be read piles that don't get read, we actually just shot ourselves in the face, not in the foot.
Right in the face. Okay.
Right in the face. Because what we did is over time, they saw, oh, a bunch of people downloaded this book, but they never even opened it. And at some point that gets baked into the weighting that goes towards your book. So I know we'll be doing this a lot where we digress on these things, but like those are all the pieces that go into rank, right?
And then I'll just looking at it, it's not just if you're exclusive to Amazon and you're in KU. Obviously, they see everything. They see the pages that are turned because that's how they pay us. But if you buy an ebook in the Amazon atmosphere, in the Amazon world, and you download it and it's on your Kindle, they can see what you do with that book. Every time you're online with your Kindle, they can see that. So
that's why you could pick up on your phone. And the same with Audible. Audible does the same thing. I can listen to my phone. I can listen to my computer. I'm listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl right now. It's going to jump in right where I left it, no matter which device I'm on. So they know that much anyway. So
yep, all that stuff. So Joe, let's take a wee step back and look at the basis of this algorithm. So one of the big things is the 180-day period of time, right? That it works across, or it's the main. It'll work across even more than that, but the main body of it is working across that. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So, and I think this is one of the things that was part of that like triggering incident is like, and I just this last week is like somebody like, I heard it's going to 180-day moving average. Like this is something new.
It's been that way.
And it's like, let me point you to a person who worked at Amazon and a paper they wrote and a presentation they did at a symposium where they say, we've been running a 180-day moving average since before 2016. That material's from 2016, right? And this is a real important one because here's what we did is, so there's this thing called a cold start problem. For the audience, what that means is like Amazon wants to make sure that new products get visibility and don't get harmed because they don't have 180 days of history. So how do you solve that problem, right? Like you want to use a moving average to help smooth out ups and downs. You want to use a moving average to make sure that you're putting the best thing forward across a bigger data set. Then I bring something new. And this could be the new Harry Potter book, right? Like if there's no sales data and it's book 7 or whatever the last one was, like it wouldn't get shown, right? The robot doesn't know that you should show this one first now. Here's the other thing with Amazon. As you read through the history of the stuff I put together, no one's ever dealt with a data set this complex, this fast moving, right? So what they've done as an endeavor is amazing and cool. But so back to 180. So their solution back in 2016 was, okay, we'll truncate the formula. So on day 1, we're going to take your book sales and divide them by all book sales. Day 2, we're going to take your book sales and divide it by 2 days. And we're going to just keep doing that. So for the first 6 months of that product, you're going to be getting favorable mathematics. Okay. So what do we do as a community? We see this and we're like, oh shit, if we slam all of our book sales into the front end, we'll get this spike. We'll advantage ourselves because the numerator is bigger than this truncated denominator.
Nick, the denominator's on the bottom. That's the D for down.
Thank you.
D is down.
I was drifting off there. You lost me. But thank you.
I just said fractions. I always had to remember denominators down. That was what I'd learned in 5th grade. So
yeah. And just as a side on that, think about that, what I said earlier. So when I first came around, there was about 4 million titles, and now there's 10 times that, right? So the denominator is getting bigger. So like, you were wondering back if fractions were ever going to matter? They do.
They do.
Yeah. Finally, a use for them.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically, you're 1 out of 42 million. So it's a very small number. So you've got to be able to figure it out.
Yeah. So it makes sense to there was other things going on at the time, right? Like back when we're talking about 10 years ago, like a BookBub deal would make a full-time career.
Yeah. It launched people. Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that are wildly successful and were able to step out onto this because they had that initial start, right? They book got visibility but there was a lot of other things going on then. It was far more underserved market. There were genres that were really underserved. And as indies, we exploited that. Like, hey, this is where all the whales are. And we'd all bring our boats there and fish and kill all the whales.
And that's why we don't have vampire books anymore. So
I remember sitting, and I love Alex Newton and the work he does. It's brilliant stuff, right?
Yep.
It was an early 20 book session that he did, and and I had clients that were in this genre, and he's like, "Yeah, here's this underserved genre," and I was just like,
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah.
90 days later, it was like Normandy. The books were slamming up into that genre, and it passed. Right, the people that were already established there actually benefited from that, right? Because it brought readership. And I don't want to make this like it's an us or them or exploitive kind of. Just understand how all these pieces work together. But back to this 180-day thing. While it made sense from we could see response, right? We could see rank change. What we didn't understand was that has nothing to do with how Amazon is thinking about recommending your book. And oh, by the way, recommendation matters more than anything else on the planet. Even if it's not true, they believe it's true. Just like we believe rank gives visibility, they believe recommendation is the key to success.
It's the tool that they have to work with, right? So, okay, so we've got this. We know the algo in its largest form works over a 180-day period of time. Things like the ranking goofball that happened in the summer of 2025, which is a particular needle in my side because I was trying a rapid release over those months. And people talked about, well, there's a delay. One of the things they did was they changed when they let you know when the ranking changes and they alerted you. But I always felt like delay was the wrong word. It was a suppression. And they were trying something amongst the algorithms that they use along these lines that you're talking about, right? They were looking for more sustained sales, and they were spreading out over what appeared to be a greater length of time before you released, if you were on a pre-order, and after release. And then they changed it back. They switched back in about, I think it was late July or August, right?
Yeah. So let me pose, and again, like I'm not talking to guys inside Amazon. Like, here's the other thing to keep in mind is like, I talk to a lot of high level people at Amazon through Author Nation. They don't even get to talk to these guys that are the data scientists. These guys are so important to revenue. They're kept separate. So like, I say that so that you understand that anything I'm saying is like, do your research, dig in. If you do see stuff that I've missed or is wrong, please reach out to me and we'll talk through this because I want to understand this. But where I'm going with this assumption that I've made is there's a high likelihood that what you were experiencing wasn't that they were turning things on and off. Like we think it's some guy with levers. Like, more likely what it was is they were testing out advanced machine learning. And what we experienced as upsets and changes was that machine learning through trial and error. And that it got to a new equilibrium. And this is something authors have to understand in this new world of machine learning and AI is these things work on trial and error. If you can't give it a good outcome, you're going to have problems. And probably the single biggest one, I've heard you guys talk about it. It's one of the reasons why I reached out to you is like, if you're in KU and you're sending traffic from Facebook, it's optimizing on clicks. That machine is doing the best it can do with the information it has. What you really want is to understand and design machine learning around repeat reading by a customer, which is like several orders of magnitude lower. So
yeah, down. It's way beyond what the info we can get, even with our affiliate links. So
if you start looking at that problem and you solve for that problem, then you design your system differently, right? And like how you're looking at where you bring your customers, where you bring traffic to first, right? And then how you nurture that traffic. And I don't want to turn this into a whole advertising thing, but I just bring that up as like, this is how as a author that's going to have a sustainable career in the next 5 years, you have to start thinking how you get these machine learning tools to do the work for you because they're very, very good at it, right? Like,
oh, right.
The cool thing about whether it's Meta or Amazon, their data set that they're working with is so deep and no human would be able to really think through these associations that could result in you getting your next best customer. But a human can certainly screw up its chances of finding that.
Yes, put me in charge. I'll show you how badly I can screw something up.
Yeah, so, I'll break this machine.
I can break it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's, going back to what you asked, Nick, is like I think that what we experienced that summer is they're moving to more advanced tools, right? So and one of the things that I brought up to people is like there's research papers from Amazon about how they're trying to solve the cold start problem with, it's not AI, it's not a large language model. That gets into a whole nother thing. It's advanced machine learning, right? And it is somewhat associated, but the whole idea is that the more that they can help, they're trying to solve the customer problem is get the purchase occasion right. And this massive data set, do I show Nick the exact, type of adult diaper he needs to see right now?
Extra absorbent for sure. The
right? Yeah, I was gonna say, right? Yeah.
The oops, I crap my pants.
And it's just yeah.
I'll literally test the shit out of it. Sam, please don't use that as the soundbite for the beginning of the show. No one will listen. No one will listen.
Oh boy, where do we go?
Sorry, Jack. Okay. I derailed you completely.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, a human can derail anything. I thought it was going to be me, but it turned out to be Nick. So
It's me. I can do it too, Doug. I can do it too. Okay, well, there's something I really want to mention here with your article that you've written. So, as you mentioned, you don't have a secret cubbyhole that you open and talk to these code writers at Amazon. But what you do have, and you reference throughout the article and link to, is all these papers that have been written from universities and people that used to work at Amazon and various things to support what you're saying.
Yeah. And probably one of the most enlightening things, and I kind of reference it in my deal, is like, as you start reading through this stuff, is like, you realize like, oh, there's like 10 guys and gals, right? That are the heavy hitters in this. So like when I say they've been using a truncated formula or recommendation, like let's just use recommendation thing, which is a thing that authors keep looking over, is like, recommendation has been in place, and specifically item to item recommendation has been in place since 1997. And the guy whose name is on the patent for Amazon's item to item recommendation, which I cite in this, tells about like how they discovered it, right? And there's him and like two other guys. And then there's 20 years of research that they've done on this to see like how it's developed. And so like when you go and look at, there's this, actually, I think his name is Glenn Larson.
The guy that did Knight Rider? Sorry, that's where my brain went. I was like, okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah, is it the same name? Anyhow,
it was the same name. I was just curious. I was like, huh.
Yeah, not the same guy. This guy has, I found, I've like gone his blog post, and he's sharing how do I know it was around in 97? Because he tells a story about how Jeff Bezos came into his office and did the I'm not worthy thing on his hands and knees when they first saw the impact of item to item recommendation on their business, right? People forget that Amazon and, how old that company is. And that, one of the biggest ways that Bezos made money, like his real windfall before the company got profitable, was he was an early investor in Google. So like he bought the A9 company and got involved in search. His influence was Alta Vista, right? He was like early days of internet, and like, oh, if we could take all these books and give people an easy way to search for them and then drop ship them from publishers and use media mail to deliver them, I think I got a business here. And why metadata became so important is because that was something that they could access and easily squirt into a system for people to search, right? So like our first, right? So like we start to see how these things build. So he brings in a guy and they're trying to figure out how to get sales to go. This is where this whole idea of item to item relationships and recommendation is so important. What we call also bots matters so much. And I would say probably the single biggest detrimental thing that I think Amazon purposefully did was giving that real estate to advertising.
Yeah, which was a big move for them. So, okay, so let's talk about this in a sense for the average idiot like me who's an author, that what they need to be thinking about and perhaps thinking about a little bit differently. So we know there's this big algo that drives all this stuff, and it's looking at lots of different things. We know rank is kind of a gauge of what's going on. And in the past, we've really focused and got our egos puffed up when we get a higher ranking than we've got before or what have you. What feeds this algorithm, ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're looking for is what we generally refer to as relevance. And when we talk about relevance, what we mean as authors is Amazon likes our book. It wants to put it in front of more people that might buy that book. And that's what we're trying to feed. And the things that we need to pay attention to when we're trying to feed that is not just this big rank spike. It's not like you go up there and then that's going to make everything work forever. The conversion that you're talking about. So the people that we drive to the buy page, how many of them actually get the book, either buy the ebook or get it in KU or buy the print? That has a big bearing, right?
Yeah. So I talked about this in my book Advantage, about like how to think about your marketing different. And like this just validated for me this thinking. And I apologize because I was a big proponent of a lot of the things that we do because it made sense to me until I understood things differently, right? And like,
well, you don't know what you don't know, so that's
Well, but the other point, let me throw something at you there, Joe, because this is changing. It's evolving. As we said at the beginning, the coders aren't sitting around with their feet up waiting for another 10 years before they change something. They're constantly. So the things that worked 10 years ago, it's changed. All things are moving. So I'm not saying you were perfectly right back 10 years ago, but I'm not saying you were all wrong either. It was working for a lot of authors. So
it was. And I think that there's two components. One is like, if you're a new author and you didn't get that advantage, there's going to be cool new things you'll be able to exploit. Don't be like, boohoo, I wasn't able to, do a bunch of promo stacking and slam my book into the top 100. But so like one of the things that I would say think about as an author is you want to send the right traffic to Amazon. So we touched a little bit on this when I was talking about what I would do with ads is like, even if I was going to be 100% KU exclusive, I would be nurturing and developing my audience on my own platform and acting as an intermediary, right? So bring traffic in, whatever sources I'm using, nurture them. When I know somebody is buying books, right? And again, it's going to be a much smaller percentage, right? So maybe it's only one for every 100 people that come in as a lead. But when I do send traffic to Amazon, so let me ask you, you guys have books coming out in Amazon soon?
I got one coming out in 2 days. You got one next week?
I got one in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Yeah.
What book is that in the series?
Book 3 for me.
Book 4 for me.
Do you have any way to identify on your mailing list who the people are that have finished up to that point in the series?
For this series, no, but for my other series, I do. Based on a great talk you did at Nink a couple years ago, I followed some of your advice, and that actually helps a lot. So
yeah, don't listen to me. Like, what was the outcome of doing that?
Oh, that's been a huge. And just a quick brief. Basically, each book would have its own little added bonus, epilogue that may not. I treat it kind of like Marvel does at the end of the credits. Those scenes don't really matter, but everybody hangs around for them. So I wanted to create something like that. But each one is individualized for that book, and when I do it, I send it to a specific segment on my newsletter, and that helps me get an idea who's doing what. And then I've even automated that so it starts sending them out. Hey, make sure you review this book, and make sure that way I know that they've gotten through it. So.
Yeah, I've done the same method.
And it's been a huge, because you talk about getting organic readers, that's people who have read your book, not just I've got a freebie and I want to jump in. So
yeah, and then like what that does is like it's awesome because now you're nurturing your audience. You're getting, again, I'm going to go high level because like this is super important. If you want a sustainable author business, you don't just need to sell another book. You need to get an audience of repeat buyers. That's the only thing that's scalable. Like you can get more repeat buyers and they keep buying, but like thinking you're going to do this by finding 5 more people to sell one book to, it's going to cave in on itself. So knowing that, like now that you do this, now you have this really powerful thing that anybody that I've seen that's done this and really automates their emails well, it's like they've got a smaller segment, right? So how big's your list, Doug?
I'm sitting at around 8,000, I think. So.
And what do you figure, if you don't mind sharing, would be the ones that on a list that you have for like that series? Would it be 100? Would it be 200? How many would be?
Oh, for my main series, it's probably several thousand. I've actually built it up. The last one I did, because this one I've got coming out as a co-written piece, so I didn't do it as much on this one. But my last series, I earned 600 new followers just off of the last release. So for one release, so that's every time I put a book out, that's adding 600 new subscribers. But it also engages the ones who are already there. And I never thought about that, because the ones who are already there are like, oh, well, they get engaged and get the extra story and then get a whole new, they get moved. They also get moved to that segment of the list so I can see where they are on it. So
right, like so there's like as authors we're like, oh, I'm writing book 15. I want to talk about 15, but if I'm a slow reader and I'm on your series that I love and I'm on book 3, don't distract me with book 15. Remind me about book 4 because I may not know there's a book 4. Like we just assume they know we have this big series. But anyhow, I'm back to the whole algorithm thing.
Right. It's about the quality sends to the buy page.
Right. So now I have this list of let's say 300 people that are ravenous.
And they buy. They're the ones that buy. So
they're going to buy. And I send that and think about these two scenarios. In the first scenario, I send them plus all the other 8,000 people on the list. Plus I do a bunch of stacking stuff. So I send all this traffic to the page and I dilute the shit out of my conversion rate. I drive it down to below average because a bunch of people come to the page and bounce. Versus I send them whatever number I said, so 300 people, and the conversion rate.
There's someone far more important calling him than us.
It's this potential spam guy.
That's us.
Those 300 people come and you have a 22% conversion rate. And you gave Amazon a sample of those people. And, Dave Chesson talked about this with how they cascade out on keywords. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, you've given us this example of these people. Well, we have a pool of people that look just like them. We're going to see if we can keep this conversion rate. And what they do is, this is where it matters, they recommend your book in emails and in search and on pages because they spontaneously develop a lot of that stuff now based on who's clicking and who's logged in.
Yeah. So that's what we call relevance. You just jumped up your relevance for that book.
Yeah. And by the way, you also have to figure in this takes some time because guess what? There's a backlog. Like before they can get you scheduled in. And if you go and look in your data, you'll probably see this where almost like 2 weeks later, you start to see a little bump up. Well, it's like, oh, now those emails are going out. They're testing this thing out. And they'll spool out into a bigger and bigger audience until they get to average conversion rate. Say it's 1.8724%. And then they'll drop you like a hot rock and move to the next guy. And what happens is you don't see that spike in that book. You see it in the front end of the series because people, they get this suggested to them. They are interested. Well, it's book 4. Well, I want to read book 1, right? But the whole idea is to think about how each one of these is a test, trial and error to teach that system because we don't want every reader. We want the ones that are going to buy your book and read it because that stuff gets built into even more distant weightings and relevance scores, right?
Over those 180 days. Absolutely. So the big question, which has been an ongoing question since these began, was things like our friends at BookBub, who are more likely to give you a free BookBub feature deal than they are a 99-cent feature deal. But either way, we all have tried for these and we've all used them. And this raises the problem of the freebie.
I don't necessarily have an issue with that. My way of thinking about this is, and this gets to some stuff you guys talk about in like how you develop your career and how you think about the value of your intellectual property. I wouldn't necessarily use a BookBub deal. Like if I'm launching a book, launch at full price to a discrete audience and let the machine learn this. Now, you got a series that's long in the tooth. It's 18 books deep. Book 1, go run a freebie. Go get a BookBub on it and bring some new people in and squeeze a little more juice out of that lemon.
But you might actually, based on what you've been saying, would you be better off? Traditionally, you try for book 1. It's a funnel. You're trying to bring people in with book 1, right? So you want a freebie book 1 and get them in there. But actually, what you're doing is diluting the performance of that book 1. Are you better off going with 2, 3, 4 and leaving book 1 is in a little better place in the Amazon waiting? And
yeah, I think this is one where I'd really have to go down that and think about, because the other side you could talk about is people that do first book free that are wide. And in essence, you have to look at that. Like, it's like, oh, how much do I get on read through? It's like, oh, what? It's bizarrely just like a conversion rate.
When you do that and you make it the book one perma-free, it's no longer book one in essence. It is on the number and it is in terms. But the most important book is book two, because that's the one that's actually launching the rest of the series, right? You'll get all these people. So, we know the problem is if you do a freebie, you get tons of people pull it into their Kindle. They'll grab it all over the place. And a very small proportion of them will read it. But what traditionally you tend to see is a decent tail of that over a few months from people who eventually get around to it.
Well, and if you're in Kindle Unlimited, you also have the benefit of a lot of people. It's free, but they go to use KU instead, and that's what I've always found is
that's a big benefit. Yeah, a big financial income from it is driving.
I would also say you might need to make, like, if you're doing your free book and it's the first one, and you guys can disagree, but I think you need to make sure that's the one you want to be so good that people are like, oh yeah, I want to keep reading this. You don't want that to be the sloppy one that you threw out. So,
the other thing that we've done and has had a lot of success is you write a prequel short story to any series, right? But like, you can't have this like a throwaway thing. Like, it needs to be like genetically engineered. And by the way, you're probably going to write this like if you're doing a rapid, and I do, there is merit to rapid release. Don't get me wrong, right? Because we're not going to ignore the truncated 180-day thing, right? That there's, right? But like, let's say you're going to do some books in a new series quickly, having that, and what we've done is that get that short story into your existing audience 6 to 8 weeks before you launch as a gift, and have it written in a way where like you've opened up loops there that are going to make them want to read book one. And then you have this tool of things that you can use on BookFunnel. You can use it in any kind of ads that you're trying to, bring people in. But where do you bring those people is you don't send them over to Amazon to buy book one. You bring them into your website, and then you figure out, right? You want to have a well-segmented audience. You want to know, okay, these people want to buy from me on Kickstarter. These people want to buy from me direct. These people are only going to read me when the book finally gets into KU.
And I can assure you that 90% of our listeners, I did this as well for a long time. I had one list that I wasn't segmented. It was just everything went to my Douglas Pratt author list, and that was it. And now it's amazing what you can do with it once you separate it. But even I don't use it very well. So
I'll give you one, something I just did. I took my entire database out of my CRM or my email system. I use Kartra, with all the fields, all the lists, all the products people have bought. And it was like 16 or 18 meg worth of data. And I threw that into Claude and just said, give me an executive summary on all of these things. Help me to understand, since you're my chief data scientist, on the clusters and undervalued areas, and help me to draw conclusions from how people are going through my customer journey. Now, there's two things that come out of this. One, you're going to get a lot of insights right away that you never had. But two, it's going to help you think about, like, I need to be organizing this much better so that I can keep doing this. Because if you never, ever use AI to do anything creatively, you will be using it for your customer nurturing and understanding your customers.
Gotcha. All right, let's. We're running long here. Let's. Which is brilliant.
We could go
gold.
for another 2 hours.
I know this is all gold, but I want to summarize a couple of other things. So, what we're talking about here is let's jump back to the release, and when you bring out this new release. So you've got this option. It used to be that we'd look for rank, and we got to bang it up there and get this rank and all this stuff. But actually, sustained sales over a longer period, not just with a new release. With all your marketing, that's what you're really looking for. Instead of these spikes and falls, you're much better off to have something sustained at a good level than spiking at a great level. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You really want to start thinking about, like, I want to optimize for not quantity but quality, right? And I want the right readers that are going to read the book. Right? Because then the machine can see this stuff in ways we can't. And I would say the other thing we at some point have to double click on and go deeper on is just because we're not seeing our also bots on our page because they gave that to advertising, your item to item relationships of your product is more important than it's ever been.
They're not also bots, they are sponsored, but the winning bids are generally either going to be somebody that's very overpaying or they're going to have relevance to your book. They're like also bots. They're just getting paid to have them in there because, like you said, it's about the recommendation, right? And we know in those auctions that are happening in an amazing time frame in the background, that relevance to your book is got a lot of weight.
Yeah. So the real estate has gone to sponsored ads, and I think consumers now understand it's advertising, but there was a period of time where there was a real breach of trust with the reader, and that like, oh, if I landed on Doug's sales page, yeah, I would see some of his other books, and I'd see Nick's books, or I would see Nathan's books, or somebody's book, right? Like I would see different people's books that had a relationship that was tied to people with similar reading behaviors to me. They broke that trust. But what I want people to remember is that, and this gets back to those item to item relationships, a human being doesn't have enough, even if you buy most of your stuff on Amazon, the information that they can tell about you isn't all that great because you buy 90% of the same stuff over and over again. And then what they want to be able to do is when a friend says to me, oh, you should read this epic fantasy book, and I pick that up and I read it and I consume it, they need to start serving me more epic fantasy books like that. So behind the scenes, they're making item to item relationships. When you look at it from the data scientist perspective, that's really strong connections and clusters they can make. They know that if you read this particular author, you're going to like these other authors. If you read this book, you're going to like these other books, even though they may not be in the same genre, because they can see that repeated data. So that's the other part is, and I mean, authors have known this for a long time, is like, you don't want your Uncle Ernie reading your book just because, and all he reads is bass fishing books.
I dropped the F-bomb a lot. Yeah, that's he didn't like that anyway. So
like understanding that you still need to be thinking about your marketing and your co-marketing with authors in your genre, even though it's not necessarily visible on your page because, Joe Schmo with an extra budget can just advertise on your page and be there, right?
Let me tie that back to something we said early on is Author Nation is a perfect example for you don't know anybody who writes in your genre, then get involved in a community like Author Nation and you're going to meet those people. So would y'all agree? I think.
Yeah.
That's how
Nice reach around. Nice.
Hey, I try. Hey, I do what I can.
You like that little tickle there?
Yeah.
I even lubed up a little bit. But I know we've actually gone really long. So let's kind of, maybe we wrap it up with a quick idea of some action items that authors can take to pursue forward. And let's start off, first of all, with go read this article that you've written, this dissertation, because we scraped the bare surface of it. So Joe, you have some action items we can throw out to some of our guys?
Yeah, I think so. I know that the community is really overwhelmed with like all these changes, and there's a lot of momentum around how advanced machine learning is going to change our experience. Like at the show, I was telling people you got to be ready for selling books with inside Chat GPT. Like there's this stuff that's at some point you might be like, I cry uncle.
I give.
Here's the cool part. All this stuff is trying to do one thing, and that is to find the right person for the right product. So if you stop thinking about these things as obstacles and things to gain, but instead of like, how can I help Amazon's algorithm be my little selling buddy, and give it the right audience. And it might only be 5 people to begin with, but understand that information goes in, it's going into that system, and multiple things are touching it and drawing conclusions and figuring things out you'll never understand and helping you compound your business. And by the way, what really resonates well with people who buy books is well-written books that have high stakes.
Wow.
What? Madness. Crazy talk now. We've had you on here too long, Joe. You lost the plot completely. You went crazy on us.
There's a lot of great people out there that teach people how to use advertising, right? We probably taken all their courses. There's a bunch of people who would say, well, he said this and I didn't get that out of it. And it's like, yeah, because if you go back and look at your data, he 10x'd your sales. You went from 1 book sale to 10 book sales. And now 9 more people know you write a crappy book.
You see your 3.8 review average.
Oh my gosh, stop pointing at me, Joe. It starts to feel
and guess what? The worst part is you taught Amazon that people don't want to read your books. And it's got to figure out billions of purchase instances every day. Everyone's worried about all the AI slop that's going to come out. Listen, this system has been efficiently sorting through
real people slop. Yes.
It's so good. That part is like razor sharp.
It knows exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Cool. All right. We'll wrap it up there. This has been brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. We highly recommend you I would read the URL out, but it's like 3 acres long. So go to our show notes and click on it and go to the article. It's long. It's important. It's got supporting data up the wazoo. So it's well worth a look, folks. Take the time to take a look at that. Joe, thanks again.
And go back and just re-listen, because you're going to want, now that you've listened to it, read the article and come back and listen. Maybe some of what Joe says is going to make sense. So, because it helped me.
Good point. And, I hope to see you in Author Nation. I leave my island.
Nation.
I leave my island occasionally.
He certainly ain't going to Vegas. Nick's like
I've spent enough time in Vegas for a lifetime. But that if I'm going to go to Vegas, that's the reason I'm going.
You can stick around. Isn't F1 going to be there again right after?
Yeah,
F1's
very close.
See, you can stick around to the F1 right after if you just come.
That is a draw. That is a draw. So, all right. Thank you so much. Thanks to Vellum for supporting the shows. Appreciate you guys, Brads. And thank you very much for our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate it. These are the kind of shows we're trying to bring you that have a bunch of value for you as authors. So, all right. Thanks again, Joe. And we'll have a new episode out next week. Until then, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors Podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favorite platform for new shows coming every week.